Welcome back to The Walking David, Daryl Dixon Season 2, Episodes 5 and 6. Let's get it. I'm going to try to kind of rush through Episode 5 and get to Episode 6, because I just watched Episode 6, and it's been a couple of weeks since I watched Episode 5, so here we go. Episode 5, we see Coudron shows up at the nest and basically wants to help them protect the child because he's had a change of heart. Daryl and Carol kind of walk around and they sort of talk about like how Ash is going to take the news that Sophia, in fact, has been dead this entire time and she really came to get Daryl. And he's like, your friend? Ash, right. I mean, bringing the kid back wasn't really part of the plan. You gonna be all right with that? She's like, I don't know. I kind of embellished a bit. Oh, god damn. Kick the fuck out of that. I don't even care about episode 5, dude. Let's just get through it. I don't even care. Daryl and Laurent have a very awkward scene where Laurent is in bed and they talk about Isabel dying and Daryl's like, hey, you're just going to come back with me. It's what she would have wanted. Laurent doesn't want to go, at least at this point. Daryl hands him the Rubik's Cube. And about as much of a shit as I gave about the Rubik's Cube when I addressed it, that's about as much of a shit Laurent gave. He literally took the Rubik's Cube and just put it on the wall behind him and went back and didn't even act like it was anything. I guess they're going for the fact that he's so innocent, he doesn't even realize what that meant to Daryl. I don't know. Jesus Christ. Fuck, I just need to get through this. Throughout episode 5 and just all of these Daryl and Carol scenes, they have these little moments where they try to kind of rehumanize the characters and get them back to where the relationship was. And I mean, we do get to see Daryl be a little bit more honest, but it's very light. It's not very heavy dialogue, which is kind of like, why wouldn't you just... It's very cursory, you know what I mean? Daryl takes Carol to the demi-mall. Hey, welcome to the demi-mall. These are drag queens. That's where you can get drinks. And here's a lady who, by all means, shouldn't help us, but I think she will. The problem with a lot of these scenes with Laurent, even when he has like a scene with Caudron, which is, I think, one of his better scenes, they are giving him dialogue that would make sense for like a 6 or 7-year-old. But even at his age and even being sheltered, he wouldn't be this innocent. You know what I mean? Like, he's asking Coudron, like, why did you want to kill Daryl? And he's like, he killed my brother. And he goes, oh, so you, like, loved your brother. You're like, yeah. What, do you, like, love your mom or something? Like, that's not, like, special insight. But then everybody acts like, I never thought of it like that. Like, of course he fucking loves his brother. Like, what are you talking about? Let's get through this. Fucking air conditioner came on. God damn it. Lo Sang shows up at various locations throughout the episode, like a Scooby-Doo episode where he is 2 steps behind our heroes as they try to hide Laurent from him. He shows up at the nest, then he shows up at the demi-mall, and then through a series of wacky events and Falou's help, Daryl and Carol are looking for Ash, and it takes them like all of 2 seconds. They like look over to their right, and there's a car with 100 walkers trying to get into it, and Daryl's like, well, somebody's got to be in there. It's literally how it goes. It's like, takes him half a second. Like, oh, he's right there. Everybody's just like within an arm's throw of each other, I guess. Like all of this, like I'm surprised they can't hear Ash yelling from the other scenes that we were just in, So they get into the car, and they help Ash. And there's a lot of space in these cars, I've noticed. Very, very roomy. Every car is a Cadillac in the apocalypse. It just so happens that in the car that they save Ash with, they have like a bunch of syringes of that special stuff, the magic stuff from Space Jam. And they're able to like shoot walkers and stuff with it. Like there's just not even going to address it. Don't get focused. Don't get hung up on it. So they get out of there. Carol explains to Daryl once again that, the way that she got Ash to go across the country was because she said she was looking for Sophia. She was basically picking up from where they left off in the last conversation when they were walking and talking. And Daryl was like, yeah, so how'd you get him to come all the way out here? She goes, well, I lied about Sophia and he lost his son. And Daryl's like, got it. I'm like, yeah, this isn't complicated. It's not a hard story to follow. It's really not. Coudron brought Laurent to the demi-mall. Wow, that is the Frenchest thing. Coudon brought Laurent to the demi-monde, and Daryl and Carol sort of confused as to why they're there. Oh yeah, okay. They go to the demi-monde to get ethanol for the plane. And everything happens at the demi-monde. They got ethanol, they have booze, they have women, they have Laurent. Laurent doesn't want to go with Daryl because he says that everybody that he loves dies, which is factually accurate. But Daryl goes, it's not true. I'm not going to tell you I love you, but you love me, don't you? Huh? For whatever reason, they have to escape. Come on, bud. I actually took that really well. Usually I hate it. We're almost through episode 5, you guys. When they're at the demi-monde, that woman helps them escape. I forget her name. I don't really care. She kind of goes to this back kind of, catacomb back entrance or whatever that leads into these tunnels that will pop out on the other side or something like that. And so they go through it, and it's like very cheesily decorated with skulls and stuff like that. And I'm just going like, who did this? Who stacked this? This looks like a Halloween set. But anywho, they go in there, Lasong and his female companion, sister, whatever, they find Daryl and they get into a fight. Lasong is clearly not just using Aikido for defense. He's trying to physically hurt Daryl. Daryl eventually overpowers him, and off camera, basically, he picks up a skull, like Hamlet skull, or like, alas, poor York, you know what I mean? And he's just got a skull, and he just bashes Lasong's face in, and we don't even see it. We just kind of cut to his hand kind of doing a Glenn, you know what I mean? And also the woman gets her ass kicked, but she's still alive, and she's okay enough. I think Coudron throws her against a wall and knocks the wind out of her, and so she just passes out. Okay, skipping past however they escape, Carol finally confesses to Ash that the entire reason that he flew across the country was a lie, in that Sophia died 12 years ago. So this is the first time I've actually heard like a proper amount of years dropped in The Walking Dead, besides saying like it's been 6 years. It's like, okay, so it's officially been over a decade. It's 12 years. It's definitely more than that, but let's go with that. I've been saying like 17 or so, but let's go with 12. With that lady and Coudron's help, Daryl and Laurent get to where Ash and Carol are with ethanol in a truck. And Daryl and Laurent have no idea how bad the previous conversation has gotten. But don't worry, nothing will really come of that. The whole episode ends on a cliffhanger that even though Ash is super, super pissed, he goes, well, only 3 of us can fly on this plane. It won't leave with 4. Drama. Let's get into episode 6, the season finale of Daryl Dixon, season 2, The Book of Carol. Not as much happens in this episode, but I will address a couple of things that I actually enjoyed. Au revoir les enfants. Au revoir les enfants. Which, goodbye kids. Goodbye children. Dude, I thought when this episode started with Daryl with the guitar, we're not even going to get like a build up to this. We're literally just jumping right in. He just has the guitar. We didn't see him find it. He never brought up that he wished he knew how to play guitar or that he knew how to fix the strings or Merle taught him or anything like that. He just gives him a guitar so that this scene can take place. And Laurent starts playing only the first like 2 or 3 chords of You Can't Always Get What You Want. And the Daryl goes, you can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. But if you try sometimes, you might find you get what you need. And he gets a little emotional. The reason that this scene is even taking place is for Daryl and Laurent to have a private moment where Daryl goes, I'm not going with you. You, Ash, and Carol are leaving. And I'm staying here because I can survive. I can handle myself. But you need to go with Carol. And Ash is still pissed at Carol. I'm not going into all the fucking details of it. He's still pissed at her. She says, don't take it out on Daryl and the kid. It's my lie. Don't blame them. I can't remember. I mean, I just watched it and I still don't really remember exactly why Coudron and Falou are teaming up. But I think they're just there to distract the main villain from getting to Daryl and Carol and Laurent and Ash faster. So that happens. Then this woman shows up that Plow, I guess, has a crush on, or he falls in love with her in the span of one episode to the point where he abandons his friends, but we'll get to that, I guess, later. The bad guys get the drop on Coudron and Plow. Coudron and Plow and the lady, they put up a brave fight and are able to fend off the big bad and all of her henchmen, at least for the time being. Then we cut to a scene with Ash and Daryl where basically, Daryl tries to sort of explain himself just a little bit. I mean, he's initially just trying to help him find parts. Ash is like, I don't want your help, guy who I'm not even supposed to be taking back, but I am now. Daryl is able to mention, like, listen, I understand that you lost a kid. I'm sorry. I was there when Carol lost her kid. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. And that kind of wins Ash a little bit over to his side, and they actually have a decent scene together. But there is something I want to mention now, and I'm going to mention it later, that I think sums up these spinoffs, but more importantly, this spinoff. It was the notion of leaving things unsaid to have something to say later, but will later ever come. That's something to keep in mind, because that's what kept thundering through my ears while I'm watching this episode. Because they're starting to say stuff, but they stop that scene just shy of like a true arc or true character change or a true point being made. They kind of get 3/4 of the way there, and then they just cut to a different scene, and it's sort of a jarring, like, what? But I liked the scene with Daryl and Ash, actually, a lot more than I thought I would. Sister Lady, the one who took over after Lasong died, she corners that, like, hooker lady who helped them at the Demi-Mon lady. I should just call her Demi. So Sister Lady intimidates Demi, but Demi says, you know what, I'll help take you to the kid if you let me keep the plane, because I want to go home to see my friends. She leads them to this corridor that is going to lead them right to Daryl, Carol, Ash, and Laurent. They kind of hear some of their, like, soldiers, like, trucks or, like, a motorcycle off in the distance. And so they start rushing to try to get the plane ready to go. And so now the time clock is starting to commence. Can they leave? Can they fly away before they get there? Carol also brings back Daryl's crossbow, and he's like, no way. And then we're done with that. So Demi leads the sister lady, Demi leads the sister lady and her henchmen into this herd of walkers that weren't there earlier when Daryl and Ash were there, when there was just one. So I guess there's secretly been 50 there this whole time. They shoot the walkers, they shoot each other. One bites the sister lady on the arm and gets like acid burn on her face. So she's dying, okay? Actively dying, but she's so gung-ho because she can hear the plane. She's like, you know what, we're doing this, we're going. And so she just pushes past it. But before that, she traps the Demi lady in with the walkers. And then the Demi lady, I don't even understand why a young person would be this way. She's like 35 years old, and she just accepts death. She just lets walkers bite her shoulders and stuff, and not her neck. They bite her clothes instead of going for the flesh because the actress didn't want to get shit on her face. And she just dies completely silently. I don't know anybody, no matter how much they hate life or how much they don't give a fuck, can deny that they're being eaten alive. You know what? I haven't hung out around Armie Hammer enough. Maybe he knows. Because he's totally a real-life cannibal. Sometimes I fucking hate this world. So, Coudron, Plow, Daryl, Carol, Ash, and Laurent are trying to fly away, and it is taking a fuck ton of time. So they're slowly getting onto the quote-unquote runway, which is just an open grass field with very short mowed grass somehow. It's perfectly mowed. And maybe Ash did that while they were gone, let's assume. And they're firing bullets and firing bullets and firing bullets at each other. Back and forth, back and forth. Daryl is able to prevent a guy on a motorcycle from, because, Norman Reedus and motorcycles, he kind of does the Rick thing, and I think they were trying to give a nod to the Rick Grimes, like, take a deep breath and, focus up, like Rick taught him to do that. And so he shoots the guy on the motorcycle, takes him out. We're not really sure if he's going to be able to get away because there's a dune buggy heading right towards the plane, and the plane is having trouble taking off because it hasn't gotten up to speed. And then all of a sudden, somebody snipes from a different angle the driver of the dune buggy and pan over, and it's Carol. She jumped out of the plane somehow off camera so it could take off because it doesn't have as much weight. Which makes you wonder, like, at what point did she jump out and how was she able to get settled and set up so quickly and over to the brush where those guys on the dune buggy couldn't kill her? Don't think about it. But you know what? Ash and Laurent take flight. And they are on their way home to the Commonwealth by themselves. And Daryl and Carol just watch and wave. I do like the imagery of watching that plane fly away and them waving at it. Some of the imagery in this episode is fantastic. So credit where it's due. The cinematographers and stuff, they know what they're doing. They're very accomplished crew members. For whatever reason, we introduce two Scottish people. Like Falou just goes like, I have two friends, and they are hard to understand because they are Scottish, but they will be helping us. And they're like, like they're just like, they're coming out. I mean, they couldn't do anything more. I'm surprised they didn't have like a Scottish flag. They just made them as stereotypical as they could. These little twinkish Scottish people. It kind of is like the Scottish Dwight and Sherry. You know what I mean? Falou tells a story. It's sad or happy depending on how fucked up you are. But it inspires that woman that he just fell in love with to kiss him. And he's like, you should come with us. She just goes, I can't, not unless I have Jamalia. And I guess that inspires him to stay. Daryl and Coudron wrap up their character change moment. Or Daryl helps Coudron through his character change officially when he goes, I didn't kill your brother. Because Coudron's like talking about, he's like, my brother Michel, you know, he's dead now because you killed him. And Daryl's like, I didn't do that. Some girl and some guy was pretending like he was blind. I tried to help him, and she killed him. She told me that you did. I guess she's a big old liar. I guess she's a liar, pants on fire. That's not far from the actual dialogue. Here are some kudos. While there is a fire going, Daryl and Carol get an actual scene together. They get a proper scene where Carol is legitimately mourning these new, these feelings re-arising in her about Sophia. And Melissa McBride is a phenomenal actress when she brings it, okay? And I don't know what caused her to not be as bold in the other episodes and kind of just yada through things, or if that was just they were rushing through and they added her kind of last minute to the season, so they had to go back and kind of shoot things, and so she wasn't really aware of the context. But by the time she got to episode 5 and episode 6, she was aware of the context, so she brought more of her acting chops because she's actually aware of the story now instead of playing catch up with everybody else. I think that's probably what it was. But anyways, let's continue. And she's like, why even go on? You know what I mean? Like, I think about her now and I just wonder, like, what is the point of all this? Like, kind of what Daryl was saying in episode 5. Like, why do we get to go on? And he just goes like, that's what we do. We just keep going. All right? That's what we do. This scene legitimately reminded me of when Daryl and Carol would have conversations at the prison, or the Cherokee Rose episode, where she's kind of just like overwhelmed, and Daryl and his stoicism, but he's such a sweetheart, you know, the anti-hero with a heart of gold. I mean, it was a very nice scene, actually. I really don't have many complaints about it. Daryl, Coudron, Carol, Falou, that one lady that has a crush, or that Falou has a crush on, and the two Scottish people. You see them at the channel, okay, that leads from France to the UK, because that they feel like they can find a way home from the UK. It's a lot easier, apparently. Maybe there's ships or planes, I don't know. But that's what they say. So we're at the precipice of it, and Falou basically, you know, that actor gets to say goodbye to the cast, okay? And you get to see that he actually had good relationships with the cast, because his character would not be as cheery, I don't think, to say goodbye to everybody. But, I mean, it literally looked like they were just filming the goodbye of the actor rather than the character saying goodbye, if that makes any sense. Because he and Coudron, the guy who played Coudron, looked like best friends when they said goodbye, and that just doesn't really track, at least not to me. he decides to stay with this new love. Mon chéri, je t'aime protéger. He says, hey, stop. He basically says, like, you know, Daryl and I, like, he says to Daryl, like, brothers forever, or something like that. They share a nice embrace, and Daryl's like, I thought that's what he said. And Coudron's like, your French is getting better. And they go in there, and they find some kind of, like, camp. It kind of looks like a FEMA camp or something like that. And they see all that these people are, like, dead, and they're strapped to tables. And they see that there's, like, a bunch of guano, and other chemicals that had leaked, and they're, like, a hallucinogen. And so I forget exactly why, but basically you see that there's like gas masks. It's kind of like Chekhov's gas mask. Daryl sees that. They realize that they only have a short amount of time to get through it before the hallucinogens would take effect. And so they try, and basically as they go, they all start to hallucinate. And I'm just going to say, as weird as this was, I liked it quite a bit. The scenes with them fighting amongst these like kind of glowing pits, it felt so video game, but it actually was doing some justice to the impact that certain characters had on our main cast. Isabel's impact on Daryl, Carol trying to work through her unresolved loss of Sophia, and finally mourning all of this time later. Coudron mourning the loss of Michel, and also still struggling with the fact that he's held on to this idea that Daryl killed him. Even though Daryl told him recently that he didn't, he is still working through that. And so they're fighting off walkers and trying not to get these glowing guts all over them. They're hallucinating themselves and the walkers and shit like that. They're killing them, and they're almost fighting each other because they keep seeing each other as somebody else. It's very trippy and weird. But I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like that. I don't even know why. Okay, maybe it's just because it's different, but something about it, like I found myself watching it, going, "This is different. I'm all in on this portion," and I don't know. He might have seen this. It might be why he hasn't shared any of my shit lately. But on Instagram, Norman Reedus follows me, and I sent him a message, and I don't know if he responded. We have no idea as of yet. But I just go, that scene with the hallucinations, I actually thought was really, really good. And seeing how, let me read what I wrote him. That's not even like a humble brag. It's just something I did. So let me see here. I said, wanted to say that scene with the hallucinations and everyone seeing the person they love and reconnecting with an important part of themselves from that relationship was awesome, which is true. I liked seeing Carol re-access that part of her mind, because if you've ever done acid or mushrooms or hallucinogenic or psychedelic or something like that, you can have those moments. Now, they're not going to be as vivid as you might hallucinate a person who's not even there or not even alive anymore, but they can be eye-opening, and they can break down the walls that you have built up. I personally, the last time that I ever did mushrooms was like 1.5 years or 2 years ago at a party. And I had been drinking just before then. I had one mushroom with a cap on it. But I was talking to this guy, and I don't even like this guy. Not really. Like, we're not friends. We're kind of just acquaintances. And I found myself talking to him, and he just looked so sweet in the moment that for whatever reason, I just started to kind of cry. And I wasn't even aware that I was crying. He goes, "You're crying." And I go, "No, I'm not." And then he goes, "You are. It's okay. Let it out." And I go, "Let out what?" He kind of, "It's not your fault," from Good Will Hunting to me. And so you do have those moments, those very visceral, you can't even explain it while you're kind of feeling this moment. And you have the tracers and everything's kind of trippy like that. And you feel like you're kind of moving in slow motion, and it keeps snapping back into reality. Like you kind of respawn into your body sometimes and then go back out into this kind of otherworldly sort of out-of-body experience, like you're just watching yourself experience things, then you kind of come back into it. It's very trippy. It's very, very trippy. So mushrooms, acid, all that stuff, LSD, all of ecstasy. So I got to wrap this up. This episode, was it as bad as some people say? In some respects, yes. But I will say, the last 10 minutes of this episode with Daryl and Carol having their emotional scene, and also the hallucinogenic fight scene that they were having where they're kind of working through their problems. Aside from the Scottish people, that was a stupid addition. Take them completely out. That was just bad. You didn't need to do that. You could have just had Coudron and Daryl fight without any of that and seen the gas max. We didn't need it, okay? Because they end up just dying by the hands of Daryl anyway. So, pointless. But I liked that section. And if you could duplicate that and just expound on that and make an entire show out of that feeling, you have an actual decent show on your hands. If you don't do that, though, and you do what you did in the first 45, 50 minutes of this episode, it's just going to be a real stinker. So the thing that I want to address is that characters in this show, the biggest problem with it, I mean, the writing is just not good. Okay, it doesn't matter how good the actors are. Even amazing actors can be marred with terrible scripts. We see it all the time. Okay, good actors can do a lot with very little. And Norman Reedus and Melissa McBride and Falou, the guy who plays Falou, and the guy who plays Goudron, and Isabel, and all those people, and Losang, they are doing a lot with very little. Okay, they are, because they are characterized, but I just don't connect with them, and that's because the writing isn't there to make them seem real. They just seem like superficial characters that are meant to be red shirts and die. So when people died in this show, I really didn't feel anything, and I don't feel a danger for them because they had already announced a season 3, which is a stupid fucking thing to do. So if for some reason Norman Reedus or Melissa McBride, you're watching this, or AMC or anybody there, stop promoting that they got approved for a 3rd season, because it does the opposite of what you think it's going to do. It's going to cause your viewership to tank because people are going to know that they live, and then they're going to go, you know what, I'm just going to wait until the whole show's done, and then I'll watch it later. I'll binge the whole thing when it's done. But I'm not watching it right now because I don't even know how many seasons I'm committing to, and I refuse to commit to like 10 more years. So take that note. Really take that note. That's genuinely, I work in the industry. I'm telling you, from a marketing standpoint, you've got to stop doing that. You are shooting yourself in the foot. Not even in the foot, both feet. You're cutting your feet off. Okay? Stop doing that. This season, Norman Reedus, overall, I give you like an 8. 7.5, 8. Melissa McBride, the first 4 episodes, I'm going to say it's not your fault. And I'm going to give you a 6 for those, but these last 2 episodes, I'll give you an 8, maybe even an 8.5 in this last episode, okay? Because you really brought it. You're so good when you get emotional at pulling us in, and same goes with you, Norman Reedus. When you get emotional, you pull us in, because we're not used to seeing the character like that. We're not used to seeing you like that, frankly. And when you care, we care. And when you don't care, we don't care, okay? So when you kill someone and you just move right past it, so do we. It's like the news. 50 people were murdered today. But anyways, this weather can't be beat, can it, Flip? You know what I mean? Like, when you do that, it just makes me go, oh, well, that murder must not have meant that much. But when a news anchor breaks, then they can't fight it anymore. That's powerful. That's what we're kind of going for. That's the true blue connection. Was season 2 better than season 1? I've heard people have this debate. I guess I'd have to pick season 1. The only reason I'm picking season 1 as better is because of episode 2 of season 1, where we got the flashback of France falling. That was good. But when we got that same flashback for Madame Genet, it was bad. And it shouldn't have been, because it was at the Louvre. You know what I mean? An even more magical place in many respects. You could have done so much more with that, and you didn't. And it's just a shame, okay? It's not that, you can't always get what you want. But here's the thing. We didn't get what we wanted, and we didn't get what we needed out of this season, frankly. We did get Daryl and Carol back together, but we didn't get it in the way that was super, super satisfying. Having said that, if they're together now, and then we have satisfying shit from here on out, like we did in that last 10 minutes, I'll watch that 3rd season. I will. But the writing around it has to improve. And the casting has to improve. Like, any child actors from here on out have to be actually good actors. They can't just be some kid. Because there's no point in that. Because now the kid's gone, and so is the premise that he was the cure with him. Basically, this entire season was pointless. I mean, when it comes down to it, the whole season went from, instead of him being the cure and testing that, to him just leaving. and making friends in America, and we will never see him again. At least we can hope. Can't always get what you want. But basically, this season overall had some very good pocketed moments, but it underdelivered. It overpromised and underdelivered. And you just can't do that. If you didn't promise anything, maybe it would have been better and received better. But you promised the moon. There's an expression that they go, if you aim for the moon, you might not even hit the trees. But if you aim for the trees, you might never get off the ground. And you aimed for the trees. And you didn't get off the ground. Ash and Laurent did. I guess they were aiming for the stars. I might have to make a full review talking about the season more in depth, but I honestly don't know if I will. But if you enjoyed this insight, thank you so much for watching this episode of The Walking David, Daryl Dixon, Season 2, The Book of Carol, Episodes 5 and 6, the season finale. If you disagree with me and you really, really loved it, leave it in the comments. I'm totally fine to be wrong. And if you agree with me, let your boy know that he's on the right track, okay? Much love, you guys. Gotta go get the girl some coffee. Can't always get what you want.